Folks, wake up. They're here. The enemy is inside the gate. We're in bad trouble. And if we don't stop it, we will lose this country that has been built for 250 years. You know, for months, I've been raising the alarm over radical Islam infiltrating the greatest country on the face of the earth, the United States of America. You know, some Americans see what's happening in Europe, and they think, you know, would that ever happen in our country? The reality is, yes, it's happening right now, right before our very eyes. The enemy is now inside the gates. There are plenty of Muslims that come here, love this country, assimilate into American culture, and they have a duty to join in the fight and speak out against the mainstream media and elected officials who are empowering radical Islam to take a foothold in the United States of America. Governor Kathy Hochul of New York welcomed in the new year by declaring January as Muslim American Heritage Month. And to red-blooded American patriots' dismay, Hochul directed state landmarks, including the iconic skyline of New York City, to be lit in the color of Islamic green. You know, what makes the situation, Mr. President, even worse is that the One World Trade Center was also lit up in the Islamic green, as you see here. The exact location where Islamic terrorists flew planes into the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001, killing thousands of innocent Americans. You know, this was a slap in the face of the families of nearly 3,000 victims who were murdered and thousands injured on that very, very tragic day. You know, I never thought I'd see something like this in my lifetime. But for years, the radical left, the globalists, and the deep state have colluded to destroy this country and have found a way to flood our communities with third world Muslims whose only goal is not to assimilate, but to destroy the West and create a worldwide caliphate. You know, if you don't understand what that looks like, just take a look at Europe. Under Barack Obama and Joe Biden, our federal government imported millions of foreigners who hate America, enabling them to live on welfare and forcing American taxpayers to pay the bills. New York City's recent mayoral election reveals how easily a Muslim communist can come to power in our nation's most iconic city. You know, foreign-born communist Mayor Zohran Mamdani polled 62% of support from foreign-born voters in New York. Weren't born in the state of New York, weren't born in our country, but 62% of them supported him. Only 30% of American-born voters voted for him. Under Joe Biden, millions of illegal aliens, including terrorists, murderers, and rapists, were planted there to completely destroy the freedom-loving voter base, all on purpose. As a result, a foreign-born Muslim communist who hates the greatest nation on earth and wants to change it is now in power. During his inaugural ceremony, Kami Mamdani used 2 Qurans for his swearing-in ceremony, not the Bible. He used a book that advocates for killing of all who don't believe in Islam or refuse to follow Islamic teachings. He was also sworn in at an abandoned subway, a subway station symbolizing what New York City will soon look like when freedom-loving Americans flee for their lives and Sharia law becomes the rule of law in the 5 boroughs in New York City. New York City, the symbol of liberty and freedom in the new world, is now turning into the same oppressive hellhole freedom-loving immigrants have fled from for centuries. They've been running from it. But now we're changing into that same situation. The deep state hasn't wasted any time in 2026 to accelerate its globalist agenda to destroy this country. And if we don't do something to stop this Islamic takeover of our country, we will soon be called the United Caliphate of America. That means Christians, Jews, and anyone else who doesn't convert to Islam will be prosecuted and persecuted. It'll be acceptable for young girls and women to be raped, and Islamic terrorism and violence will become the norm. Thankfully, President Trump and his administration is working day and night to save this country through mass deportation, revoking immigrant visas, and implementing travel bans in majority Muslim countries who support this radical Islam crowds who chant death to America. We continue to see more evidence that comes out of Muslim third world foreigners defrauding American people of their hard-earned taxpayer dollars. You know, thanks to independent journalist Nick Shirley, more and more fraud from Somali immigrants in Minnesota who are pretending to use the money to feed children or help people with autism, it's being exposed every day now. In a recent hearing in the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, testimony from a Minnesota state representative claimed that U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson estimates that total amount of criminal fraud to this point, after 5 years, has reached $9 billion. That's billion with a B. But Minnesota's Attorney General said this weekend on CNN in an interview that, you know, the fraud estimation is not a serious thing. That's just political theater. That's expensive political theater. A statement like that is not only an insult to many Minnesotans, but it's also a slap in the face to the hardworking taxpayers of this country. What's taken place in Minnesota is pure evil, and it's straight from the pit of hell. It's impressive to me that a 23-year-old independent journalist did more to serve the American people with investigative reporting than the so-called experts in the legacy media. Where are they? The fake news is complicit with the radical Islamic takeover of the United States, and they are in on the scam on the American taxpayers. Thanks to Nick Shirley's efforts, more fraud is being exposed in other states. Fox News recently reported that Somalia's permanent representative of the United Nations, representative to the United Nations, now serving as president of the UN Security Council, is linked to an Ohio home health care agency that has previously been punished for its ties to massive fraud. There are other reports surfacing about Somalia's foreign affairs running a health care company in Toledo, Ohio, who has a business partner that works for a Somalian money transfer service which has been accused of financing Islamic terrorism. You can't make this up. It goes on and on. So here's more. For months, a new publication in the state of Maine, known as the Maine Wire, reported on a similar event taking place in Lewiston, Maine, also known today as Little Mogadishu. Gateway Community Services, founded by a Somalian refugee, received $28.8 million in Maine care payments between 2019 and 2024, $28 million. And last year, a whistleblower came forward alleging that the organization systematically defrauded the Maine care program for the last 5 years. Thanks to the hard work of the Trump administration, funding has stopped and the organization is under severe investigation. As more of this comes to light, a couple of facts are becoming more and more apparent. Number one, third world foreigners from predominantly Muslim countries are coming here and stealing American tax dollars while they spew anti-American rhetoric. Number two, Democratic elected officials seem to be complicit in helping foreigners who hate this country steal from their own constituency, the own people that vote for them. The enemies of our country are robbing American citizens in broad daylight. While the cost of living standards in our country skyrocket, they're higher than they should be. Healthcare premiums go up year after year. That should make every single American's blood boil. But Democrats have invited terrorists from countries that hate us. They steal our benefits. They enjoy our schools, overrun our hospitals, vote in our elections, and then steal our tax dollars and send them back to the country they came from where they can fund terrorism. Thankfully, we have a president who loves this country and is going to change it. President Trump and his administration are working around the clock to halt immigration, to stop fraudulent schemes that were allowed to take place under Joe Biden. Patriotic Americans are thankful for the work of DHS and ICE and what they're doing to clean up our streets at a cost. DHS and ICE agents have been targeted by radicals because they're enforcing the law. What a thought. And I will continue to support law enforcement until every single illegal is out of this country and comes here the right way. If you're going to interfere in law enforcement's ability to do their jobs, folks, in any way, don't be surprised if you're arrested and thrown into jail, and you should be. Thanks to investigative reporters like Nick Shirley and folks at the Maine Wire, we're slowly turning the tide on fraud and corruption. Deep state and fake news media, third world Islamists, they are eroding our country from within. We need to wake up. American citizens need to come together, recognize what's going on, and say enough's enough. As long as I'm alive, I will fight to ensure that my granddaughter, Rosie Grace, can grow up in the same country that I and a lot of other people had a chance to grow up in, greatest country on the face of the earth. And what I'm telling people across this country, and what should have happened in Europe years ago, folks, wake up. They're here. The enemy is inside the gate. We're in bad trouble. And if we don't stop it, we will lose this country that has been built for 250 years. I yield the floor.